I try not to be an overly prideful person because, I saw an adage one time that said, if you think too much about yourself, you better realize that a lot was accomplished before you were even born. But one of the things that I'm very proud of is that in 1982 we began a zero-based budget for the first time in the parish. Prior to that time, parish budgeting was a matter of legal-sized sheets of paper horizontally was in spreadsheet fashion, most of it manual. This is what we spent last year. This is what was budgeted this year. This is how much we think we're going to spend, and this is how much we want for next year. That was the parish budget. Under zero-based budgeting, which was kind of coming into its own, and it's kind of gone out of its own now. The phases of budgeting is historic, I guess. But under that scenario, you begin with a zero amount. You don't say this is how much we had last year, so now this is how much we need this year. Forget that. What is it you're buying? What is the service you're performing going to cost? And don't relate it to last year. Now, obviously, you got to use a little bit of historical knowledge of what it cost to do that last year. But it forces the question being asked of budget leaders and of department heads, what are we doing today that really we don't know why we're doing it, or we're only doing it because we did last year that we really don't need to do? What are ways to do that better? What could we not do that won't impact the public's use of services or whatever? Forced to ask those kind of questions, and then, okay, whatever we're doing, how do we quantify that, and how do we price that out? That's what zero-based budgeting did. Now, we adopted more of a modified zero-base. It's impractical to go down to zero. If you own buildings, you're going to have to pay a light bill so we didn't want to get silly about that. But through a modified system, we were forcing department heads to answer questions that they had never answered before. That's number one. Number two, we certainly need to know what is the cost of operating, say, the Public Works Department or the library system or the mosquito control department. But along the way, we really need to know what we're buying, what we're doing. So we created a narrative system in the budget process to where, don't tell us how many paper clips you're going to buy. Tell us what you're going to do and how you're going to go about doing that and how you're going to do it better than you did it the year before. What have you learned from that process? And then, quantify it. How many mosquitoes you're going to kill, but how many, what is the cost on a per square mile basis of fighting that? Or what's the cost of doing a mile of road? Those kind of things. Instead of just some line item that said road improvement, X number of dollars. So that began in 1982 and continued to be upgraded and modified beginning then all the way through today, which is still a work in progress. They're still doing new and different things, but they're asking the right questions. Why are we doing this in the first place? It's not a good answer to say, well, because we did it last year. That's not a good, or because he did it. That's not a good answer. It needs to be a better answer than that. And even one, I wish I had a copy of it here. I probably do somewhere, and I know in Brian's office there are some of the budget documents that we used beginning probably in about the mid-'80s. We weren't that clever in in 82 when we first started this, but by the mid-'80s, the cover of the parish budget had a huge double-edged razor blade on it. And that was the logo, and we used that for years. I had a guy not too long ago tell me that he remembered seeing that. He says one of the best things he ever saw was a razor blade on the front of the parish budget. That logo wasn't exactly true. It's not like we went in with a chainsaw or a razor blade to people's budgets, but we did force the key questions about why do you need this much money for that service? Do you know what it's costing you to do that? And is there a better way to do it? Or do you need to do it at all? Is that still something that's necessary? And I think the dividends on that kind of a budget system that have been paid since that time. So that was a pretty big change in the way. And of course, we talked earlier about the way that we did fiscal reform by moving from ad valorem to sales tax base and those kind of things. So we went from, and no disrespect to anybody that was here before, but when we hired Jerry Milner as the first director of finance and moved away from just this parish treasurer deal, He came in with a CPA. He was a partner in one of the premier accounting firms in town. Since that time, he's built several other CPA positions in there. We have now, I think, last count, 18 consecutive years of winning the Governmental Finance Officers of America Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, which is a lot more than a plaque on the wall. Those people on Wall Street understand, in the bond market, they understand that an agency that holds that distinction, which probably is less than 3 or 4% of the local governments in the United States, an agency that holds that distinction is going to get a much better bond rating than somebody that does not. Well, that's money in the bank, because if you get a better bond rating, you get a better interest rate on your bonds. So anytime we do some capital project here involving bonds, the taxpayers are benefited by the fact that the police jury has made financial reporting one of their primary goals, to get that, to have that be in the form of excellence. And that's what Jerry and his staff and Tammy have built over the years.